corn, soybeans, hay, wheat, tobacco. When Jamestown was founded in 1607, things were hard at first. The settlers struggled to stay alive with the few resources and money they had, all while being in brand new uncharted territory. When all hope was lost, one thing completely changed the lives of the settlers and turned a new leaf for potential salvation in America: tobacco. Tobacco was our nation's first cash crop and gave us the economic power we needed in order to turn one small settlement into 13 colonies and eventually the 50 states that it is today. As you've already heard at the beginning, we studied the many cash crops that contribute to Kentucky's economy today, which just so happens to include the one that helped build this country to begin with. Yet, maybe a new cash crop is starting to bud on the surface of the horizon, a cash crop that would cause an economic boom similar to that seen from tobacco all those years ago. A simple plant with 6 leaves that has the power to turn this nation upside down. Marijuana, cannabis, weed, dope, pot, whatever you want to call it, one fact about it's true. Its presence is simply something you cannot avoid. Marijuana and its status of legalization has been constantly debated on both the federal and state levels for many years. The question is whether it should be legalized to reap economic benefits or made fully illegal so it does not seem like the government is promoting drug use. That question was first brought into the limelight when the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937 criminalized marijuana nationwide, according to History.com. Obviously, marijuana is a drug, one that alters the mind and it has a certain stigma in our society. Yet, we propose to fully legalize marijuana both medically and recreationally in the state of Kentucky. Just because marijuana is a drug does not mean those involved in the industry of marijuana have to actively use this drug. Just like all those years ago when they were producing tobacco, they might have been producing and selling the plant, but that does not mean they actively had to use it to reap its benefits. This is a big stigma that happens today in our society, saying that people who sell or are in the industry of marijuana are also using it, which is not always true. The issue of marijuana legalization goes well beyond the scope of what you learn in health class. We believe that it would be the saving grace that the Kentucky economy needs.
$247 million in simple tax revenue. Imagine an extra $247 million in tax revenue going towards the Kentucky economy. This may sound like something too good to be true, but this is the actual statistic of how much the state of Colorado collected in 2017, according to the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City. This is why legalizing marijuana would be such a game changer in Kentucky. This much money would be a game changer in any state, to say the least. Not only would it bring in millions in tax revenues, but it would also provide new opportunities for employment. Kentucky is showing a decrease in its state revenue due to the failing coal industry and the rural regions that have left thousands out of work and cut out a crucial stream of revenue for the government. The integration of a marijuana industry could pump a lot of much-needed tax revenue in the state. Imagine every benefit that marijuana legalization could bring forth and weigh that against the arguments in opposition to legalization. Think about that in your head for a second. Clearly, the arguments for legalization outweigh the arguments for opposition.
But now the question remains, what would legalization look like in the state of Kentucky? Currently, only CBD oil is illegal in Kentucky, and that's strictly for medicinal use. Now, Kentucky House Bill 136 proposes the legalization of medical marijuana, and most states that legalize medical marijuana go on to eventually legalize recreational marijuana as well. But House Bill 36 is still only beginning. Even if it were to pass, there would be further laws needed to legalize recreational marijuana, and if not, then a new attempt entirely would have to be made. But in any case, however legalization comes about, several restrictions should probably be put on the use of marijuana in order to mitigate its negative social and health effects while still allowing Kentucky to benefit from it economically. First off, as is currently the case with alcohol, it would be a good idea to prohibit marijuana use for those under the age of 21. Next, while recreational marijuana would no longer be illegal, many employers would probably not want their employees being under the influence of it while they were working. And so accordingly, provisions should be put in place to allow them to forbid that if need be. Finally, given that it's not a good idea to allow anyone under the influence of any drug to drive, appropriate regulation should be placed on the use of marijuana while or before driving, including the development and implementation of suitable tests that can actually tell if someone is too impaired to drive or not.
The argument posed against legalizing marijuana due to the regulatory blind spots or ineffective regulations are weak at best. Claiming that marijuana legalization is somehow going down a slippery slope discounts the commendable work that has been done in other states. In fact, there are precedents for rules and regulations regarding recreational marijuana use that have been standing for about a decade. States like Washington, California, and Colorado have had recreational marijuana laws since 2012. California has had medical marijuana laws since 1996, and Kentucky has yet to pass any. House Bill 136, as it stands right now, is just a proposal. Kentucky is 24 years behind on medical marijuana law, and it might just take another 24 for Kentucky to even dare go into recreational laws. There is no legislative argument against drafting a recreational marijuana law. Washington and Colorado have already established regulatory frameworks that implement common sense laws and other rules regarding retail and distribution. As mentioned, Kentucky, like the aforementioned states, set the age of limit of purchase to 21. It could set purchase limits where a consumer can only buy certain amounts, like 16 ounces for cannabis-infused edibles, or 7 grams of concentrates, like it is set up in Washington state. It could require retailers to validate the age of consumer and not allow anyone under 21 in its premises. It could ban public consumptions like all the states that have legalized marijuana already do. Anyone suspected of driving under the influence could be required to take a blood test that requires a certain threshold of THC concentration per milliliter of blood, 5 nanograms per milliliter in the case of Washington state, in order to determine culpability. Kentucky could certainly take a page from these states and shift its roles from persecuting its own constituents to its constitutional responsibility of serving as a benefactor to her people. Kentucky was already suffering through the collapse of the coal industry, and the current COVID-19 pandemic is only adding fuel to the fire. The Commonwealth and our people are in dire need of financial stability, and the marijuana industry could certainly give the state the relief it direly needs.
In all, we believe that legalizing medical and recreational marijuana would be the most beneficial thing that the Kentucky economy needs, especially in these trying times when all hope seems lost. Legalizing marijuana could be the economic boost Kentucky needs, since restaurants, stores, and numerous other things can no longer contribute to the economy as they did a few months ago. Much like in the early days when disease ran wild and settlers did not know what the future held. Marijuana is the tobacco of the modern age, the cash crop that could flip the Kentucky economy back on its feet in these times where no one knows what tomorrow will hold.